start the all-Korean round 5 with the motion this House to legalize polygamy. Let's call the Prime Minister to open this.
Mr. Speaker, we are living in a society where the individual choice is narrowed down in a fundamental way. Why is actually fundamental choice the individual can have in our society? Because the choice of the marriage is actually directly related to one's individual pursuing their happiness through their relationship. Also, that relationship should be should be necessarily get the social official recognition from the first place. So what we want to do is that, Mr. Speaker, we're going to make the individual to pursue their direct relationship and also to pursue the happiness of the individual. So we want to set by various forms of families that individual choose. We're going to make it as a social recognition officially to recognize the individual. So that family, even if that family is of various forms in our society, they have to be recognized at the end. So our model is that we don't want to narrow down this debate. It is only specific country, but it's actually involving to develop nation as well. Because it is a fundamental individual choice. I'm going to elaborate in my first argument. But also it is actually about it's about the two-way. So it means that the one individual gets a relationship with someone, then they have to consent with spouses to accept the other new member in their society, in their family. Because that is a consent is actually empowering not only the man or the woman, it's both spouses in our society. So we are going to legalize it. We are going to officially recognize that family. We are going to make the individual to pursue their fundamental choice. And first, I'm going to talk about why it is actually fundamental choice that should be only decided by individual, neither government or neither society. But secondly, I'm going to talk about without this policy, what kind of harm will be happen both developed and developing nation at the end. Before I move on, yes.
Can I have sex with 12-year-old girl with consent?
Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure why they're talking about their illegal situation. Where the individual, the child who doesn't know how to make a rational decision in this way. We're talking about the adult who can actually have rational choices in that individual. Why do you think the adults in developed nation are irrational like a child? I think there's very sensitive from the first place. First, why in a principle level? First, we think that isn't this very basic? If you don't harm to others, harm to our society, the individual have a basic right to pursue their happiness. We think that happiness is actually directly about the individuals forming the various forms of relationship. I can choose what kind of friend I want to relate with, but in a fundamental way, if my choices is actually directly influencing my life, if I have to take a responsibility as a basic unit who's directly influencing my life continuously, I have to have that choices from the first place. So the burden of opposition will prove why this actually harm the individual, the harm to our society. I wanted to prove in that argument. Firstly, why marriage is so important from the first place? We think that the marriage is actually directly linked to the individual pursuing their happiness. Why is that? First, because once they actually make a choice, they have to cope with this in their entire life. Unless they don't divorce, they have to maintain that relationship forever and ever. And also they have to directly influence each other. With that family unit is a basic fundamental individual's segment in their society. With that is actually the basic relationship the individual can have. So we think that is actually individual choice. We think that the individual is directly influence each other in that family unit, in that group. We think that individual is actually can pursue their choices from the first place. Then secondly, without this policy, what kind of harm will be happen? So firstly, no. We think that the developed nation, where the individual can have capable wealth, or if the individual can cope with, the individual can make a decision from the first place. When we can choose what kind of spouse, like a wife or husband, we can choose. Government cannot intervene in that situation, right? The government cannot decide. You have to have 2 or 3 children. We don't think that government is intervening in that situation. The government is a very same logic, same principle that we are going to expand in our developed nation. So that is actually the more expanding the individual freedom, individual choices about the spouses or the family plan in the first place. Secondly, more importantly, Mr. and Madam Speaker, developed nation or the foreign nations where the culturally driven idea exists about the polygamy family that is actually pursued. This is very important first place. So what is the difference from the status quo and our policy? We think that the social recognition or the legal official recognition is very different from the status quo. We think that is actually not about the woman have to necessarily accept the husband idea. There's actually consent is given, so that either way have to interact with each other about the family plan. That is actually part of the empowerment. However, Mr. Speaker, what is important is that whether even if the woman is actually choose their happiness is actually having a rich husband and that to be involved in the family is better than they have to remain as a single or they have to remain as a poor. I think that is actually individual woman who can decide what is a better life for her. We think that is even if the culturally driven or even if that is actually woman's choice. If she thinks it's better to have a rich family, it's better to be included in the family part. We think that is actually that woman's choice that is actually legally should be organized in a first further way. We think that if that family included in the family union can actually give her better protection rather than be for her to be a single, we think that is actually better at the end. So what I have told you so far, I have given you what is the difference between the status quo and our policy. We want to extend the individual freedom if there is no official harm or forbidden harm to others. We think that is actually individual choice. Why? The families, the individual have to live in their life. Direct influence is getting the individual in a both developed and developed nation. But even developed nation, if the woman feels or the man feels there is actually better life, they can bring their life. The individual can have the choice. But NC will further talk about why not actually legally, officially getting the recognition will be benefit. They will be delivered in a speech. I'm very proud to
You spoke for 7 minutes and 22 seconds.
Alright, we thank the Prime Minister and the leader to speak. That's my leader of the opposition, will be the opposition side.
Mr. Speaker, after dating several roles, one thing that I've learned is that relationships is not only about rationality, it's more about emotional issues. They say you can have polygamy because we have the fundamental right to decide what is good for us. But in general, the society has a certain kind of rules, norms, and restrictions that allows our society to function in an appropriate direction. So before moving on to the substantial case of the opposition side, we have to present 4 points proposals. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, they gave us some issues regarding rationality that individuals need to make. Ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to love and having a marriage, ladies and gentlemen, it's not always about the rationale that individuals are making. We're not making a cost-benefit analysis. When we say in the case of divorce law, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not devoting your wife, if you're not really devoting you to your wife, and your wife feels that the husband is not contributing, you have a right to call for divorce law. And in this situation, what the court made decision is that court recommends people to have a certain kind of compromise period. So why this period are existing at this moment is that we're making a decision and we are making a recommendation because we feel the emotion of the individual people is very important. It's not always about the rational choice, it's more about emotion that people are having at this moment. But thank you. So even if the people have a rational choice and say, oh, I may want to accept this kind of people to have may consent for the polygamy of the husband, ladies and gentlemen, we think there's going to be more problems that are going to occur in our society. And let's go on to the second point. They say that individual women can be protected because the man will choose to have polygamy rather than divorcing to this woman, so that woman's right can be protected. But ladies and gentlemen, we think there's 2 fundamental problems with this assertion. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, when you go to your wife and ask whether I can have another wife, we think there's totally an insult to this wife, right? If the wife accepts this kind of offer, it will be great for the family. However, what happens when the woman rejects to this offer? Then the husband inevitably have to choose between this woman, A, and this woman, B, right? So in this situation, divorce will inevitably have to protect the rights of people in this situation. So by asking consent to the woman, we're not only insulting the woman itself, but we are actually like making a dangerous approach to this kind of situation because this unstabilized family, because the trust that we have between husband and wife will be destroyed. Moving on to the second point of winning this argumentation. They say it will be a protection that will be given to this woman because woman will not be having the capability to live by herself due to the husband's fault. In this situation, it will be even more dangerous for the women. Women will inevitably have to consent even if they don't consent. It's forced choice that the individual woman have to make to protect the right that they have at this situation. So consider this factor, ladies and gentlemen. You see the consent and the system that they provide to this motion is actually harming the family value and doesn't really protect the woman, actually insults them in a very different way. And moving on to the third point of argumentation, third point of growth. They say choice is important. Well, ladies and gentlemen, when we constantly take care of cases going divorceable, choice is not always the fundamentality that we have at this moment. We give you an opportunity to make choice, but choices should be made under the social contract and at the same time a social law. If you want to fuck around with different types of girls, it's okay for you to have this kind of right. But ladies and gentlemen, when you have this kind of right, you have to have a different approach in terms of legal manners. No, thank you. The reason why the society abandons and bans adultery is that it not only violates the social norms at this moment, but it actually violates and destroys the family value we uphold to a certain kind of family. No, thank you. And therefore we think that there's been a lot of violation that's currently taking from the opening up side.
So,
Yes.
basically what happens in the status quo is that even if you have a wife and you basically have an affair, it's same with emotional stress. How is that any different with the status quo under your model?
Right. You have to polygamy system. You really recognize the fact that it's okay for you to make an adultery in terms of through the legal procedure. However, what happens under the status quo? And in some cases, when you make a case like adultery, you are forced to be punished under the law, even if your wife says that you want to like help them and get him out of these kind of trials and so on. The reason why this kind of law is existing into certain kind of nations is that they believe that it's important to have certain kind of regulations and norms to create a family value within our society. Because family value is one of the things that creates our society and make an improvement within our society, which you will further love. Now moving on to the argumentation of the opposition side. First, we talk about the morality of the marriage and the concept of marriage in our society. The reason why we allow a legal procedure within the marriage is that the thing is it is important for us to have a social structure well formed. We not only give them an opportunity for people to have a certain kind of relationship, but at the same time we allow them to have a certain kind of representation. That is why we have a lot of different law interlinked with this situation. We have issues regarding divorce law, adultery law, and we even have issues regarding protection law for their own husbands and wives. At the same time, they have to be responsible for caring for this kind of families. And since this kind of family value is important, we are making this marriage illegal. If you don't think about the legality and just think about the right of the individual, you can just let this marriage take place in a social contract manner rather than making it into a law procedures. The reason why we are recognizing this marriage as one of the right and one of the legal procedure is that it's important to maintain the structure of our society. One woman, one man get married together, represent each other. What happens when this violates, ladies and gentlemen? When we see the cases like Middle East, it's never told that women have to rely on the wealth of this individual man because they don't have a wealth. However, if you see many other cases, ladies and gentlemen, if the husband dies, then there is going to be a several women there left over, right? Who's going to represent the man in this kind of situation? What if the man goes to a coma and not being killed, so that he's still alive in terms of legal procedure? What kind of representation are you going to give to this kind of people? In this situation, we think there's going to be more complexity in the family structure. That is why we give them one recognized woman to represent man, and we recognize one man to recognize the other woman. Within this situation, we think it's important that we have the legal measures to protect the family values which we have at this moment. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, recognizing the polygamy itself is going to be detrimental to our society because it's not only violating family value in terms of legal matters, but it actually makes a legal procedure which is more difficult for people to coordinate and follow. Now moving on to the second argumentation. We think it's morally unjustifiable for people to recognize the issues regarding polygamy. Because, ladies and gentlemen, family is a unit which exists as a social institution within our society. It is tied with emotions, it is tied with responsibilities. We have a responsibility to care for your children. You have a responsibility to care for your husband and care for your wife. However, ladies and gentlemen, when polygamy exists, there's going to be a psychological tendency of the individual to have a certain kind of jealousy. Even if you consent in terms of legal manner, that doesn't directly explain that you're consenting to the fact that this man is sharing their love to other people. The reason why this is going to be so detrimental is that it's physically impossible for men to consent to different types of women simultaneously, right? You can't have date with several women simultaneously unless you hold hands like several times. What the ladies and only thing you're going to have is that it's going to be emotionally impossible for you to divide your mind into several parts and equally distribute love because you are one individual. When you text some girl, unless you have like, I don't know, group texting, you can only text to one woman, right? Same principle here. That is why we have a social institution called family. That is why we have a lot of bodies in it. If you love your wife, go ahead.
Right, we can the speaker without inviting the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the opening opposition to bring the debate, they must prove to us there is harm.
Here, here.
If only he's going to try to prove to us family value is going to win. Social norms is going to win. But the problem is, my first speaker clearly said, freedom of choice is there. Social norms and ideas can be changed. The thing we must protect in this society, as a government, we must protect and respect individual happiness. If that action is not harming others. The biggest assumption coming from opening opposition was, if you allow polygamy, everybody wins. If you allow polygamy, one husband getting 10 wives. This is not the case. Even if you allow this, if you love your wife and husband, fine, go ahead. But the problem is, there's some people who want to have a one more wife. That is the case we don't talk about in today's debate. Instead, I have two arguments. Firstly, I'm going to talk about why their policy making a really dangerous case in the developing nations, and why our policy giving more power to the women. And before moving to my first argument, I'm going to give some reference coming from opening opposition. Opening opposition said love is emotional, you can't choose and anything. That argument is for the older marriage is false, right? Older marriage is not love. There is no consent choices in older love. I don't think there is a proper argument. They should talk about this insert. If you ask your wife, I want to have a woman affair. But I think that is a status quo. There is a lot of husbands who just having an affair without getting any acceptance or allowance from their wife. I think this is more insult. Then she talked about there is a first choices, right? He said there's a two countries, developing nation. I think developing nation women like you having a lot of education from the society. I think proper choices, right? Then developing nations. My first speaker said, if you are in the situations, if you marry with this guy, and if you have a happy life, or if you don't marry with these guys, and you can't have richy husband in the future, and if woman choice as a rich and happy life, I think that is a perfectly nice choice for that woman. Choice is easy because choice makes your life better. If you believe principal ideas make your life better, fine. But the problem is if you think my choice increase my happiness, my choice increase and connection for my culture, that is a perfectly fine choice I want to talk about in today's debate. No, and moving on to their first argument, morality of marriage, right? Like I said, there wasn't any harms. Harms they talk about is marriage is so important, that is why we must accept that marriage is right. But the thing is, polygamy was a social norms, right? There was social norms that can hit the woman. Every social norm must be changed. If the social norm unnecessarily limit the freedom of choice of the people, I think this is the problem. So we only have these guys talk about husband dies and 9 women, what should I do, right? But the thing is, if you marry with that rich guy, because 9 women means I don't have money, then you can get the money from the husband and you can represent yourself. I think this is a perfectly nice argument, and woman is going to be better than before. Then they talk about family is the unit, you must care for your family. I think in our models, polygamy can protect your family. This is so struggling. You want to protect your family because I don't want to divorce. But there is a woman I like. There is a problem with my happiness. That is why if my wife consent, I can marry with one more other woman. We can protect the family. If wife say no, then it is a status quo. You can divorce, maybe you can fight. But the problem is we don't want to limit the choice of the people. Yes.
Okay, so basically your first wife is so happy after having consent that you're going to have the second one.
I think that she is going to be more happy if you see the pictures having an affair with other guys, right? If you are okay with your husband having one more wife, but even if you want to maintain your relationship, if wife choice that decision, I think that is perfectly fine. We don't think all the people fight this polygamy just because there is a system. There is a lot of people who don't accept this. We want to care about the people who want to have polygamy. That's the problem. First argument, problems on the ground. In the developing nations, this is the culture. This is lifestyle of the people, right? My mommy and my dad have a polygamy relationship. That is why people follow their culture. Law cannot change anything if there is a culture. There is another problem in the Middle Eastern countries. Because there is a culture, even if law says I'm going to give you a death sentence, people follow that idea. Then what is the more likely situation in these guys matters? In the developing nations, he's just given to other rich families because there's a culture. Maybe my friend, maybe my friend's friend, but anyway, my daughter will be given the rich guys. But the problem is she is not going to protect by the law, because if you are recognized by the law, your sons and daughters as registered as a proper like sons and daughters, if you beaten by husband, you can get money from the dead guy. If your husband dies, you can get a lot of money from that guy. The problems of these guys, if you are very much underlying problem, even if there's a problem, you can't do anything about that because you are not recognized by the law. Maybe your sons and daughters dropped by the families. Maybe your husband hates you, sick of you, and you get dropped by the family. I think this is the problem. Moving on to my second argument, choice, why choice, the empower women. These guys say choice cannot make any empowered women. But the thing is, there is a status quo. If you go to developing nations, husband has too much power, they just get other women as like second wife. They get other women as a third wife. This is the problem. Maybe one time I say, no, I don't want my second wife. Maybe she's going to be beaten. But if the husband really wants second wife and third wife, he is trying to persuade that woman, that kind of relationship, that kind of understanding is going to empower these women, right? Because my happiness is dependent on my wife. My happiness is going to decide my wife. That is why we can empower more women. Mr. Speaker, all these guys talk about in today's day, this is like non-concrete harm. Family value, I don't think this is very important in terms of freedom of people and happiness of the people. All the stuff is the status quo. Woman is inserted, woman is just kidnapped and being as a second wife. But our policy respect the freedom of choices, right? Our policy thinking about developing nations women. Our policy empower women as a single entities, and their life is going to be better than before. For those reasons, I'm very proud to propose this.
Speakers spoke for 7 minutes and 10 seconds.
Correct, we thank you, speaker. Thank you, the cases of the open opposition by Deputy Leader of the House.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad to see that Amsterdam is so capable in financially and also with its strengths to have all Americans all the different lives. I'm happy to hear that. After that, what we're trying to deal with is that we do see even harm of allowing polygamy, and there are actually that things need to be protected, such as value of love, value of marriage, and how it's actually going to help that or contribute into social functioning and also social development. And that's what we're trying to protect, unlike the other side who's just going for the pursuit of happiness of each individual who may not actually do any good for the society, ladies and gentlemen. So let's talk about the rebuttals first. So actually, they continuously ask us what exactly is the harm of polygamy, ladies and gentlemen. And Patrick clearly mentioned in his points that family unit is value and how the family is formed with the love and value of commitment to one another as spouse, as a husband. And in these cases, we do know the family unit, the simplest, most fundamental unit of each society, is functions, and also when these kind of little units function well, then the social happiness or social development will be achieved with each individual doing their job within the family, so that they will do also with their learning in the family and also in the society, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you. And also they can Then I have a question back to them. What is the necessity of having this polygamy system now in the cultures who are not actually allowing polygamy system? Those nations, the less developed or other nations, with other cultures who already allow polygamy, sure, I guess it's alright. We don't want to have other cultures that is intervened by the imperialistic ideas, if you say, like us. However, in our society, in certain societies, there are values of love, there are values of marriages that we have to protect. And we believe in these kind of societies, what is the necessity? If you love someone now, then you can marry her. And once later you think you're wrong, then okay, there is something called divorce, which you legally deconnect your bond with the girl, and then maybe move to the next person that you really love. And this fixes why do we have to have this old NEAO issue, if you know, TV reality show that marriage and all the things going on. And before Yenny.
So what is the harm of this can be tried by this?
Okay, I'll talk about it later, but as mentioned before, family unit, the simplest unit that is helping the society to function well, one step with the commitment, and also the working role of each individual members of the family will also be degraded. And then there's the nation like human trafficking or individual information, which are already happening for the issues of having polygamies. Then it should be great to see, though in international society, even these nations who do actually have polygamy, see that there is a certain problem. There is a big problem actually regarding this kind of happenings of human trafficking in order to have polygamies and systems and so on. And once this kind of system is brought to other cultures who don't not necessarily have a polygamy culture, will have other problems arise as well, which we'll talk about later as well in my argument. Then let's go to the idea of the marriage and value of love, and also later with the issues of money or financial capability of these individuals.
So,
gentlemen, no thank you. Gentlemen, the value of love, it's not only about the conditions of how rich is this guy or this lady is, but it's actually also about the love and also more importantly, commitment towards another. Because we know that sometime in our life, our love will deplete, and maybe I don't love the person anymore. However, we have the responsibility as legal representatives, and as a member of family, and as a responsible person or another being that you love. You have a responsibility, and you should have commitment to it. That's why the adultery is not allowed in our society. I don't really say how it is different with adultery and the cases of polygamy. It's just that you're legally allowing any person to go and approach another lady or another man and just get in love with them. And if you're married, no problem. You are legally allowed. However, we in our society, we certainly ban adultery. It's degrading and also destroying our family with their family values, because another person suddenly pops into your life or another family, not only of the person, but of the family, and it destroys the whole family in the end. So that's why we see adultery is banned in our society, and why we say that these things are actually degrading family values of the social units known as families. And let's go to more specifically about these people who are rich or who are capable in having polygamy or sustaining themselves with polygamy with many wives. So that's essentially also, yeah.
Then what about the choice of the women who don't want to divorce, even if their husband have other wife? Then why do you dictate their lifestyle choices?
Lovely question actually. Regarding the choices of ladies that they make. First of all, they mentioned there are some poor people in developing nations who need to have money and sustain themselves with money. And there are also families who are also singles who want to be married to have a life as a married couple. First of all, in these cases of some people being poor and go marrying someone for the pursuit of happiness, do you really think this is a choice that they made rationally? Well, rationally probably. However, they made willingly? Not necessarily. They were driven by certain forces or conditions. They are limited with such amount of money, or that they are limited in their lives. So they just go to marry someone, and so that they can lead their daily lives, regardless of the fact of love that you love the person or not. No, thank you. Later, then go to my let's check. So, if we want to allow this motion to pass, what is the government sending the message here? What is the talk the government is trying to get? So basically, how we hear is that if you're rich and if you can sustain your family, if you can support your family, many families probably, then you should go marry someone as many as you have, as many as you love even. However, ladies and gentlemen, what this will do is we are turning this whole world into a reality TV show, that this person has a life here and this person has a life there, with many different wives, many